This is a review for the Hairbro ST003-1, a 0.03mm poly hairpiece. Comes with a nice little booklet telling you how to prepare your hairpiece and the hairpiece itself. Also, it comes with some complimentary tape if you want to stick it to your head that way. This is color number 4. Previously from Hairbro I ordered the color number 3, which I thought would suit my hair color because color number 4 seemed a bit too light from some previous examples I'd tried. But it turned out that I was wrong. Color number 3 is actually very dark. The color swatches, as you can see on their website, on Hairbro's website, are not very accurate, given that this is color number 4 in real life under these lighting conditions. I'll just use this light to shine a bit more light on it. All the way up. And I think that's with a colored filter. It's light white now. Okay, so I think you'll agree that the color is not exactly accurate to the color swatch. It certainly isn't averaged out to a color that you would think of as what looks like on their picture. So I ordered the wrong color the first time and I sent it back and they didn't send me a replacement. Instead, a couple of weeks later, they sent me a refund. This is their version of the Auschwitz Tag, something that we as users don't need to ever see. It's just for their stock keeping. Unfortunately, I've sprayed some alcohol onto this and it does not wipe off. This is in the back half of the hairpiece. So if you did wear this with your forehead being there and the back of your head being there, this would be around the back of your head. For me, I'm making partials. So I'm going to try to cut one there and one there. Now that will be at the front of my face, just above my forehead. That is a problem. Now I could try to buy some acetone and try to wipe it off. I've used alcohol spray, let it sit there for a couple of seconds. And then try to use a baby wipe to get the ink off. But it doesn't rub off. So that is the first babao from the company here. Looking at the way that the Vlips have been stitched into this poly, I can faintly see that the patterns of lines are stitched that way towards the front, which is expected in all hairpieces. From the other company I was using, they all went zigzaggy at the back, which made it useless for me as a front partial, because if the hairs are not going directly away from the front of the hair line, then this becomes unusable because you end up with a wall of hair right along the front of the hairline. I'm seeing some stitchings going directly down towards this area, the back of the hairpiece, which would be the front of my hairpiece. And then at this point here, I'm seeing a sort of a square where the crown might be, where the hair ends up going off in all directions. I think my hairpiece will end up about halfway through into that crown, but I'm still crossing my fingers, hoping that that will be an acceptable front. If so, and if I can get rid of that Auschwitz tag, because that could be quite visible right at the very front. I mean, look how big and thick and nasty that is. I could potentially get 2 good partials out of a single stock piece. And this did arrive within a week, as expected. $219 on special, plus the $20 discount, $199 for this hairpiece. For me, that would equal $98 or $98.50, I suppose. Or is it $99.50? Per hairpiece, per partial. Approximately 100 bucks. 1, 2. For everyone else, 200 bucks. I think anyone would say, $200 is the expected cost for a hairpiece. Poly is what I want. 0.03 is good. You can see how thin this is. very, very thin. I'll start with the back half, but because this hair's all curling up around here, I'm going to wet the hair first. I'm going to brush this. Now I haven't got my knee available to me, so I'm just going to do it here on the table. Usually I put this on my knee. And barely any hairs have come out at all. Just the same amount you would expect if you're brushing somebody's hair. So it's got good strong hold. I don't see too many extended, although that's a bit extended there. You don't want the V-loops loosening because you don't want weak V-loops. Okay, so now I want to make sure this side is dry, and I'm going to trace out my stencil. Okay, so I'm taking my stencil now. I'm going to line this up with the very front edge of the back half of the hairpiece. I really want to make sure that that's perpendicular to that Auschwitz tag, or the front of the hairpiece, so that I get front aligned stitching on the hairs. You take a Sharpie, marker, trace the stencil. There's one on that side. And while I'm here, I'll trace the other side as well. Making sure, of course, I don't include any of this part here. Now, of course, being a partial wearer, I'm kind of a beggar. So I can't be a chooser specifically, given that there's no partial industry or no partial division in any of the online hair stores. So I have to always make them either out of domes or with custom rectangles that I buy. But they can take months and months and months to be created for me. So my hunt is always for partials that are for sale, off the shelf, so I can get it within a week. As you can see, I would have almost been able to get 3, and I used to get 3 in the old days until I started creating a bigger hairpiece for myself. But I needed to because my hair was drifting back. So of course, none of the graduation or anything that hair companies put in the front here is of any relevance to anybody. It's a waste of everybody's time. They should just make every hairpiece blonde and then leave the roots absolutely clear. That's what everybody wants. But once again, Hairbro are amateurs, and they're doing what the rest of the industry does, which is basically to cut corners and just bleach the whole lot. Sorry, dye the whole lot, all the way down to the root where it looks like doll's hair. Whereas it's been shown through many people that a blonde hairpiece where the roots remain blonde and then dye after a certain period, like after a couple of millimeters, and then it bleeds down gently to become that color gently at the roots, is the only way to do it. But Hairbro once again, let me put their logo on the screen so you know who I'm blaming. Hairbro, just like all the other companies, they still continue to dye the hair all the way down to the root instead of having a blonde hairpiece with hairs dyed down to a certain point. Then we'd get no root problems. Roots are at the root of the problem. Of course, to cut a hairpiece, you need 3 hands. 1, 2, 3. And also, obviously, you're going to cut on the inside of the marker, not on the outside of the marker. Because otherwise, you would have a hairpiece with black lines all around the border, which would be ridiculous, obviously. Okay. Base feels very thin and stretchy. I'm not sure it's thinner than other 0.03 millimeter poly units I've worn before. I do wonder sometimes if they use the same plastic in every company. So this is the front half of the hairpiece because it does not have the Auschwitz tag. So this should be the better half. I just hope that the back half is actually good, because that would be, it would probably mean I'd continue to buy from this company if it is. So long as there are no other problems. Let's round those corners off a bit. At the temples. One. This is the back half of the hairpiece. It's a shame really that all of this has to be discarded, which is the reason why I turned to trying to get custom pieces, so I could make the most out of this. Also, it would be on a flat piece to cut it out instead of having to cut out a curved piece. Obviously on the underside of the hairpiece I'm not slicing through hairs deliberately. There will be a couple that are shortened, but I'm trying to jiggle the bottom blade between the hairs as much as I can, and then a reasonable amount of time. Okay, here we're getting to the crown. I'm cutting through a crown where the stitching is changing directions now. Don't know if you can see the patterns changing a little bit. The hairpiece is a bit wet as well, so it will change the effect of it. It is strange to see in this lighting, after being dunked in water for only 3 or 4 seconds, how clouded over the plastic has become, which is a little bit disturbing. Then again, it could be the lighting, but that looks very white to me. I don't want that kind of problem. This plastic does feel different to the one I'm used to from Lord Hair. There's another company. Lord Hair also use Auschwitz tags. They don't print directly onto the plastic, but they use extreme glue, which I don't know where they get it from, what type of glue they use, but they stick a piece of cloth or plastic onto I'm just trying to see where any extra marker bits might be. I'm just putting my finger under there so you can see at that spot there that my finger is showing that there's a bit of marker right there. So I'm just going to cut out that bit. It doesn't matter that it's a bit undulated at that spot. Natural hair is not a straight line anyway. It's just that when you glue it on, you really don't want to have undulations causing problems for glue passing through into the hairs. And for that reason, it's probably better to keep a nice smooth line. So when you do paste on glue, it doesn't pop through little gaps. Should be easier from here. So that'll be the front hairline. That thing's going to stay right there, unfortunately, which will be totally visible. It'll be absolutely 100% visible. Look at that. That's the color of my scalp, and that's what people will see through my scalp. It is a joke that Hairbro have decided to leave that there like that. It's disgusting practice from their company, making me think immediately, Hairbro do not know what they're doing. We'll continue to look at the hair pieces, and I may get some acetone to wipe this off, because I have no doubt that acetone, I have little doubt that acetone will get rid of that, but I'll have to go and buy some acetone. And hopefully the acetone will not dissolve the plastic and weaken the entire hairpiece. That's outrageous that they did that. Really fucking stupid. This is the front of the hairpiece. Don't remember which side was the actual front, but won't really matter. Usually I have to blonde along the front hairline so there's no wall of hair. We'll see how that goes without bleaching. The problem is though, let me place this here. Okay. It's hard to get the lighting and the camera in the same shot, unfortunately, because this whole thing is just balancing precariously. I'll try to move this in here like this. Here we go. Okay, so if the light isn't too bright for you, you should be able to see straight lines of hair coming across like that, which can sometimes look extremely like doll's hair if that's not bleached. Because as I said, just like every other lousy company in this industry, Hairbro have once again cut corners by not having the roots bleached. So the way to do that would have to be to start with a blonde hairpiece, dye it the color that I want, number 4, but only down to there, not all the way, and not stitched in for sure, because you can't even access the hairs that are underneath the plastic, can you? So they seriously are still cutting corners. Now let's look at their packaging once again. Now just looking at their packaging, this box is actually not useful unless you're patient with it, because trying to store things in there, you have this as a useful box. I mean, you could use it, get things out, but then you've got this entire lid just sticking out, taking up half the table. Whereas this really old box from Hair Direct from 10 years ago, you take the lid off, you've now got a useful box, you chuck that in, That's how much table space it takes up. It's a practical box. Whereas this one, look how much space. So we're taking up that much table space for the box when it's open versus that much table space. This gets in the way. Unless you've got a massive bench with all big open area like in an infomercial, this box is a pain in the ass. I throw these out. This one I keep. Practical, useful box. This is the front hairpiece, the front half. I put that up against my skin. You try to examine the front hairline here. That will need to be bleached. That will look fake. I'll need to bleach that front hairline if this is to become a good hairpiece. Unfortunately, I've only got 2 hairpieces to bleach, which is a waste of blonde peroxide, but it might be worth it in the end. This one is the back end, and what I was concerned about was that the hairs would be stitched in all directions when it gets to the crown. That side actually looks good. That will not become a wall of hair. And when I bleach it, that will be as good as that other piece over there. Let's look at the other side. Okay, so you can see the hair's starting to change direction there in terms of stitching around this area here. They're starting to go in all directions back here, see? You're noticing that? They're not coming straight perpendicular to the hairline. So that's no good for a front hairline, but it may be unnoticeable at the back, at the perimeter. Same there. That's where the center of the crown of the hairpiece was, and the hair's just going all in all directions. But the good thing is, at the back, they came straight down, which means this front hairline is fantastic for me. Looks like they put some grays in there. That's strange, isn't it? Not bad though. So because of that stitching direction that way, all the way along the back, that could be useful for me. Of course, they didn't bleach the roots, as everyone doesn't, so I'm going to have to do that myself. But when I do bleach it, it'll look good. Of course, that is a major fucking problem right there. Why the fuck did they do that? I will not put this on my head, obviously, while that's there, because people will see straight away. That's fucking stupid. $100, $200. I can get 2 pieces out of it instead of just 1. And here is the brush. After all the cut hairs were brushed, just remember I did cut them with scissors. So when I brushed after that, that's just normal to have hairs come out after a haircut. After you brush it after a haircut. So that's not the fault of the company, that's just what happens when you cut hair. All in all, I'm happy with the hold of these hairs. The plastic seems thin. I don't know how much cloudiness that will cause. You see a lot of whiteness there from just a small amount of wetness. Usually that goes away shortly after it dries, in an hour or so. But I've never seen it go white that quickly. Okay, so I got some acetone and some bleach. I really hope that this works. So I'm gonna take some of this acetone and put it on a cloth. Let's see if this does anything. You can see some ink has transferred onto the, but it looks like, oh no, the plastic's just melted right through straight away. Well, look, you can't put acetone on poly. It's basically the enemy of poly. Well, it looks like I only got 1 hairpiece out of this after all. Yeah, thumbs down to Hairbro for putting that freaking Auschwitz tag on there like that. I couldn't have worn it like that. It was just impossible. I had to try some kind of remover. You saw it start to come off a little bit, but the only product, acetone, that could have removed it ended up destroying the hairpiece. Do not put acetone on poly. I'm not going to waste an entire bottle of this on a single hairpiece. I'll just wear that. It's my final piece. It'll be a brush forward look. Yeah. Given that I sent hair samples of my own hair and they didn't write back about that, they didn't replace the hairpiece, they seem to be out of stock on color number 4. And the refund was slow. I'd say the communication is terrible as a company. This hairpiece looks fine at the front if you're happy to have that Auschwitz tag on the back of your head. Otherwise, I'd say at this point, Hairbro is not a good company to deal with.